Welcome to this installment of supplemental lectures provided by PNC's Concurrent Enrollment Program. My name is Alexandra Kindle, and I will share some information with you that comes out of my History 151 course at Purdue University North Central. Today I will introduce the 1862 legislation that had lasting impact on the nation and the Republican Party's ideals, and what brought this legislation to the forefront. Part 1 continues on to discuss the USDA. Part 2 will pick up with the post-war legacies of the other three acts. On November 19, 1863, President Lincoln spoke 272 carefully drafted words to consecrate the ground where so many Americans died months earlier. His words have been quoted often, and the words, quote, "government of the people, by the people, for the people," end quote, are memorable. For today, I use them to start our discussion of the 1862 legislation enacted by Republicans after most Southerners walked out of Congress during the moment of secession. With all that said, we can start first by reviewing some of the basic differences between the two parties. During the antebellum period, the Democratic Party emerged with a distinct vision of national growth. Democrats wanted to see the nation grow to benefit as many of its citizens as possible, which meant expanding the physical territory for both Northerners and Southerners. It also meant keeping tariffs and other policies off the books, so one group didn't get special privileges. The Whigs, on the other hand, envisioned a busy capital-fueled nation, much along the lines of what Alexander Hamilton had wanted. In essence, the Democrats wanted to see the nation grow out in size, while the Whigs wanted to see it grow up in complexity. As the Whig Party died out, the Republicans picked up its vision, but could not deny the importance of land for farming. Both the Democrats and the Whigs had been national parties, but the Whigs could not survive the Kansas debacle of the mid-1850s. The Republicans emerged in the North, and this reference to John C. Fremont's campaign demonstrates the importance of Kansas and the homesteads in the Republican Party platform. So as the nation finished up the 1850s, it still had two main parties. Both understood the importance of land, but still had significant differences, especially in regards to states' rights and expansion of slavery into the territories. Fremont could not win the 1856 presidential election, but the Republicans learned valuable political lessons, and Abraham Lincoln, of course, won the Republican nomination and the election in 1860. Once elected, Southerners greatly feared what would happen to slavery with a Republican president in office. But there were other differences between the two parties, especially economically. Southern Democrats walked out on the Union and ended the conversation. The Republican-dominated Congress passed 4 significant acts that suited their political economic ideals and changed the nation over time. For today, we will focus on the USDA because it opened for business during the war. The other 3 acts will be covered in another lecture because the impact of those acts did not come until after the war. In 1862, after Congress authorized the creation of the USDA, Abraham Lincoln appointed a Pennsylvania man named Isaac Newton to head the Bureau. The department did not gain cabinet status until 1889, so for now Newton was the commissioner. He had been the chief of the agricultural division of the Patent Office and had been friendly toward Lincoln. As one of many Quakers around Lincoln, he was supportive of the president. Unlike many Quakers, he was willing to participate in politics during the war. The department represented a distinctly Republican ideal. Americans took advantage of the great expanse of land by farming, not always concerning themselves with maintaining the quality of the soil. It seemed to Republicans that farmers needed more information to help them get the most out of lands in older areas and overcome the obstacles of farming in new areas. Farmers had created agricultural societies and farmers' clubs to help each other, but this was slow and inefficient at a time when the nation was expanding quickly. With a federal agricultural office, Newton and his clerks could gather the most up-to-date information about agriculture and disseminate it. Commissioners could get information from successful American farmers about their regions, but also find new crops and techniques from abroad. So for the Republicans, farmers with the right information could grow the country out in size, but also in complexity. The department was hoped to be the vanguard of science, progress, and efficiency. Heather Cox Richardson goes into detail about how Republican economic policies of the war years resulted in the 1862 legislation, providing for the Department of Agriculture, as well as the Transcontinental Railroad, free homesteads, and support for education for middle-class Americans. Every year, the department published an annual report and distributed seeds and plant cuttings to help farmers create prosperous farms for the benefit of the growing nation. Farmers could obtain reports or seeds by contacting their congressmen. Thus, there were political benefits for state leaders looking to get votes. There were plenty of complaints about Newton and the department, but they were coming from men who stayed in the Union, none from the Deep South. Thus, the USDA was safe and continued to expand in size, importance, and reach. With the end of the Civil War, the nation worked towards Reconstruction. Southerners wanted to return to business as usual with cotton and started using sharecropping and a crop lien system to replace slavery. Northerners lost interest in Reconstruction as people built up cities and factories in the North and expanded the West with railroads and homesteads. The USDA expanded in the Gilded Age and Progressive Era to meet their needs. This has been just a basic overview of the legislation, but a good reminder of the importance of the Civil War. We focus on battles. We focus on the problems of sharecropping after the war and what happened to the former slaves, and many other issues that seem quite obvious. But the creation of the USDA is not one that is so obvious, and one that affects everyday Americans' lives then and now. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that this information will help you in your studies. We all hope to see you at PNC when you are done with your high school degree.